How's it going, everybody? I'm the Bearded Burton, and I've got a treat for you today. We're gonna show you a lot of knives. I love knives. We all love knives. If you're watching this video, the chances of you being a knife lover are pretty high. I can tell you, if there's one thing that people love to talk about when it comes to knives, is which one's the best, which one's the greatest, what can do it all. And I just don't feel like there's an answer to that. It's kind of in the same lines of what steel's the best, because it's all relative. A lot of things get factored into what makes the knife the best for you. The steel is a whole other category, but over the years, you'll kind of figure out what works best for you in this situation. If you're going to this environment, what you prefer. And it's just like watching a chef in a kitchen. He's got a butcher block full of different knives, all for different uses. There's not just one knife that he picks up and uses for everything. And that's how I treat the tools that I carry with me when I'm out in the wilderness. And if I'm doing a class, or if I'm just doing a solo adventure, or something else with friends, I'm never just gonna have one knife with me, because it's a tool, and a tool's meant to be used, and the uses for the said tool vary from all kinds of things. So what I'm going to do today is share with you my favorite knife, broken into 5 categories, and there's going to be some honorable mentions, because you know me, I can't just give you one knife. But I've come up with their 5 categories. The first one being a folding knife, the second one being a neck knife, the third one being a belt knife, the fourth one being a big bladed knife, and the fifth one being a chopper. So in the first category, we've got folding knives. That's a whole world in itself, and I'm not really here to get into what components make the best, the materials, the makers, and all of that. I'm just giving you the things that I've used, the things that I enjoy, and that have lasted over time for me. So I have 2 honorable mentions here before I give you my favorite folding knife. The first one being my newest one that I've been carrying now since I got it, and that is this half-face blades folder. This is the Disaster model, and this thing is sweet. It has a full CNC machined aluminum body. There's no scales, there's no liners or anything that are bolting onto it. It's one chunk of aluminum that's been cut out. It's really hefty. The blade steel's S45 VN. It is coated. It's got a thumb stud on it, push button, lock and unlock. It's a beast. I have a lot of confidence in this knife. I'm super excited to keep putting work into it. That's my first honorable mention. The second honorable mention is the NAFS Lander 2. This happens to be a collaboration model with Carry Commission. It's got cool micarta topo scales on it. A very familiar locking mechanism that we've seen a lot, and it's S35 VN steel, and the shape of it's just really friendly. I like the locking mechanism on this one as well. It's beefy enough that I trust it, and it's lightweight. I really like that about this compared to the half-face blades. With it being a solid aluminum body, it's not as heavy as steel, but it's still heavier than just the micarta scales that are on this one. So my number 1 overall favorite folding knife is this Demco 80-20.5. It's a AUS 10A steel, and it's just kind of got the best of both worlds in my opinion. The steel's been great. It's another coated blade with thumb studs. It's got a really cool sheep's foot the pattern on it that I don't have a lot of knives in it, but what I really like about this is that it's lightweight. The texturing on the handle gives me a really good purchase, and the locking mechanism is super friendly and easy to use. It's called a shark lock, and it just makes it really nice. You can tell there's been a lot of wear and tear on this one. The other model that I had before this was from the first batch of 100 at Blade Show, and I lost it for a couple of months, so I bought this one. But I've been swimming with this knife. I accidentally left it in my shorts and jumped in the water and swim around. I've explored a couple of caves with this. It just hasn't let me down. It works great for around the office or opening up packages, and I've carved stuff with this, and I have no doubt when it comes to friction fire or any minor camp skills or tasks that I need to get done, cutting rope or prepping food or whatever, it's going to be just fine. So this is my number 1 favorite folding knife. I wanted to include the folding knife first because for me, that's what I use the most. If I have my pants on, I've got a folding knife in my pocket. That clip just slides right into any pocket that I have, shorts, pants, jogging pants, whatever. I'm always going to have some kind of folding knife with me. There's a ton of limitations to it, obviously, but there's ways to get around some hard use tasks by using a folding knife, just different techniques. And I think it's important because I don't really know a single person that loves to be out in the outdoors that probably doesn't have some kind of folding knife with them that they use. And especially people in an office setting, you know, like you're opening up packages, you're cutting your steak after you warm it up in a microwave, whatever it might be, a folding knife gets used a ton. As a side note, I think that's why it's important, if I'm going to invest in a good quality folding knife, I do want something that's a better steel. That's where I want my super steels to be, because it's a combination. I can use that folding knife to cut rope, to cut packages, to cut cardboard, to trim things up. And that super steel or that harder steel or nicer steel is going to last longer and not be needed to be sharpened. But when we start moving down the line to these other tools, I don't want super high rock wall hardened super steels for some of these tasks, because they need to be able to be touched up really quick, and I want the softer edge because I don't want to risk any chips happening with any of these knives, especially ones that I'm doing a lot of woodworking with. I want that edge to roll so that it can be repaired easier, and I'm not having to sharpen the actual edge up higher than the original one put on there by the company because a big chunk of the steel's missing, and now I'm having to match the rest of that angle with that chunk that's missing. So that's kind of my mindset. I'm going to invest in a folding knife with the super steel over a belt knife with the super steel because I'm going to have both with me. I don't have a one tool mentality with any of this. All right, let's get into neck knives next. These are all going to be fixed blades, but they're smaller. They might be thinner, a little bit more nimble. This is kind of replacing that in between. If you don't have a pocket knife with you, you can have this neck knife, have it tucked under your shirt. I really like neck knives, especially when it's in the colder temps and I have certain layers that I've got on me. I can have this tucked in between my base layer and my hoodie, or my hoodie and my outer layer. And it just always gives me a peace of mind. A lot of people don't like neck knives. I understand it. It's swinging around or dangling, or if you bend over and you're working on stuff around camp, it can get in the way. But like I said, I really utilize neck knives when it comes to colder weather. So my first honorable mention, this was really tough for me because this is kind of my sweet spot. This category and the next category are kind of my sweet spots when it comes to knife sizes and shapes and designs. But I'll go ahead and throw out my honorable mention. My first one is this custom Frontier Valley, or it might be a Frontier First, but it's a super thin knife, very thin. I really like it. I'm not using it for any hard task or whatever. It's going to give me hot spots and want to roll in my hand. But to just wear as a neck knife and it being a really thin profile and not really feel it, it's great. This happens to be 440C stainless. LT Wright knives don't make a lot of knives in 440C. So that was kind of the big reason why I got this. I wanted to see how it held up. I've cleaned a few fish with this. It's amazing. It really likes the water. It doesn't mind blood and guts. It's a killer little knife. And that's why I had to include it in my honorable mention. I've carried this a lot, so it's hard for me to not put this number one. My second honorable mention, again, super hard for me to not put this number one. This is a knife that I designed. This is my design. It's called the Bobcat. And this is an ode to one of my very first folding knives that I purchased with my money, my own hard-earned money. It wasn't a gift or anything. And that was an old Bob Dozer knife. And I wanted to make it into a fixed blade. This is A2. It's got the key stamp because it's a one-off. It's the only one out there in existence. I happened to get this made when the Pout House had customs month during the month of July. So this is one of the designs I submitted. It's A2 steel. It's got black micarta handles with like hunter green or forest green liners. And it's a heck of a woodworking camp knife. I mean, this thing, it's beefy enough to baton it through kindling. It's a Scandi. It loves to cut in the wood, dig in the wood, kind of that continuous drop curved shape. Really wants to slice and work well. I've cleaned a couple of little crappie with this, and it did all right, and not near as well as that thinner one, but it's a little bulky and chunky to wear around the neck. It's pretty heavy, so a lot of times I'll just kind of throw this into my pocket or into my jacket pocket and carry it that way. But when I first got it, I used to run it as a neck knife and used it a lot. Great tool, and it's my own design, but it's not my favorite. My absolute favorite neck knife is the Kelsmuck from LT Wright Knives again, but this is Bushcraft Kelso's design. This little sucker is one of my favorite designs that I own, period. He nailed it with this. Food prep, it's perfect. It almost kind of feels like an ulu. Any kind of fine carving or woodwork stuff, friction fire, it's almost got a center line tip to it. And then this little drop at the top allows you to put your finger up there or your thumb for doing super fine cuts, or if you're choked up on the blade, you can put your finger up here and do some really nice work. There is a little bit of a drawback. Some people don't like the fact that this edge terminates right here next to your finger. I've gotten used to it and know it enough. It will give you a little bit of a poke there, but you just kind of get used to that shape. Broomstick handle, fills the hand really nice, completely curved all the way around. No matter how you index it, it's great. And I like the way that they did, or that he did, the kind of the choil here, the thumb scallops. It's not the traditional LT Wright thumb scallop, but it's enough that it gives you that little bit of a pinch grip. And you talk about skinning and processing game, this sucker rips through hide and flesh. It's a beautiful design, and it's by far my favorite neck knife that I use and own. And I've got it set up on a little rig here with a light and a whistle from Wazoo, and it's perfect. It's not too big, not too bulky, and it does everything I want in a neck knife. All right, let's move in to the third category, which is belt knives. These are a little bit bigger and kind of find your place on your belt. Some of these, I guess, could be used as neck knives if you're a taller, bigger guy, but my first honorable mention is kind of a no-name knife. I call it the Otter, but I think it's originally the Ithaca model. Basically, this is a one-off design that LT drew up for a shotgun company, and it never came to fruition, but I got this at a virtual vault sale during the Christmas show, and it's just freaking sweet. The design is killer, the thumb scallops. The color combination of the handle materials is another awesome thing. Snakeskin, orange and black liners. It's A2, key stamped, but this design is just something I feel like my grandpa would have carried. I mean, it is just a fin and fur, around the water's edge, trapper, hunter, whatever you want to call it, knife. I mean, it's got the belly, it's sharp as a razor, and the handle just locks your hand in. It feels great. This is my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention, and this is something that it has a lot of sentimental value to me, but this is the class knife from the Scandi knife class that I took in September last year. And I made this knife from start to finish, from a piece of steel, and cut it out, heat treated it, grinded it, shaped it with the help of the amazing people at the shop. And it just feels incredible. It's 01 tool steel. It's got the maple paper handles with black liners, my name on it, and it's just a super nice pattern. It's got a little bit of a drop point to it, and sharp as a razor again. Loves doing anything around the camp, cutting up meat or carving wood and tent stakes and stuff. So that's my second honorable mention. It's hard to just give you one, I can tell you. And my absolute favorite belt knife in this category, and I'm really just talking about blades that are 5 inches or less. That's kind of what I feel comfortable carrying on my hip now. Anything bigger, it's just kind of cumbersome in the way, and I'll just throw it in my pack, is the first run of the Holy Bushman. Unfortunately, you can't get this anymore. There is a Holy Bushman version 2 out there that's awesome, but the handle on this one is just my absolute favorite. Black scales, orange liners, A2 steel, beautiful Scandi grind. It's kind of got that skookum, continuous belly curve to it. A little bit of a kickback into, it's not a center line tip, but this thing, I've made more stuff with this knife, and I've carved more things, and I've just used this more than any other knife. So I have to be honest, and I have to tell you, this is my favorite belt knife. Next, we're going to move into what I call big blades, and this is right at the 5-inch mark. Mainly the overall length is more than 8 inches, 9 inches. My first honorable mention is the guide knife. This was a design from Sam Larson, who was on a loan that he had LT Wright Knives make. It's 01 tool steel, 3/32 inch thick. It is a thin slicing son of a gun. Amazing index handle. I mean, it'll fit any way you want. It does freak some people out that there's no choil, that the edge goes right here. But this is a super nimble, thin slicing camp knife. This thing is sick. It's lightweight, and it reminds me a lot of the old Green River hunting knives that I saw my grandpa using. My second honorable mention, and this kind of hurts me, and it fits in between the belt knife and big blade, but it's the Genesis. This happens to be the Bearded Mouse model. This is a collaboration between Larry Roberts and myself, and it's the only knife that's come out of the LT Wright Knife Shop in 52-100 steel. Black micarta liners and or black micarta handles, OD green liners, and this super sweet leather sheath that our buddy Nick Outdoorology made, and very limited run, less than 30 of these, and I've put this thing through hell and back. It's my favorite Genesis that I own, and it means a lot to me, but it's not my favorite big blade. And then my number one spot is the Beard Lure. This was the very first custom knife that I submitted during the July customs month of the Pout House. This was a shape that I drew and sketched over and over and over and over again. And this would be what I would consider a one-tool option if I had to pick one. If someone was going to tell me you can only grab one of your knives to go survive in the woods for a week or whatever it is, this would be it. It's 5/32 inch A2 steel, beautiful handle material, black and OD green liners, or the hunter green liners, with this shockwood resin handle material. This is truly what I think of when it comes to a big blade. It's got, I believe, a 5 1/4 or 5-inch blade and a 5-inch handle, thumb scallops. It fits the hand really well, and I've beat the snot out of this thing. I've batoned it and split stuff. I mean, I've done things to this that I feel like I shouldn't have done, and it's still holding up. It's still a razor. For it to be 5/32, a little bit thicker than your normal 1/8 like a Genesis, it still can carve wood, and it's just a beast of a knife. So that's my absolute favorite big blade, is the Beard Lure. The last category are choppers. These are the huge big daddies, and for me, I use this kind of tool more than an axe in my area. You give me a neck knife or a smaller belt knife, a saw, and one of these, and I can do anything I need to do in my neck of the woods. My only honorable mention that I have is one that I don't have a ton of use with, but I got it to put it through the paces, and this is the Mongo Scatty. This is a modified Mongo Scatty. They did the handle a little bit different, and it is a whopping piece of steel. It's 01. It's got crazy glow-in-the-dark reptile skin-looking material on the handles with glow scales. This has been dubbed the Gator Killer, and so we had a really cool Kydex sheath made for it. Thing could survive the apocalypse and more, and it's just an absolute unit of a blade. It's pretty ridiculous. I love it. And the number one spot for a chopper is the Bangarang. This, along with the Bobcat, were the two models that I designed and submitted for the Pout House Customs month. The last month that they did it, or last year they did it. This is in '01, and it's my take on if a bolo, a kukri, and a big blade had a baby. So it's got plenty of room for two-handed exercises, like it's a draw knife or working on a bow stave. It's got enough of a belly up here that I can wrap this shot cord around my arm and have a fine processing tool. It's got a centerline tip, and it's super light and nimble, especially back here in this backhand position grip, and it works more like a machete. So it's a bolo, kukri, machete all in one that I've used and beat the absolute tar out of. Fantastic, fantastic tool. Well, that's it. That's my top 5 favorite knives. My favorite folder, my favorite neck knife, my favorite belt knife, my favorite big blade, and my favorite chopper, with all those honorable mentions in between. It's super hard to just show you one. I love knives. We all love knives. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, and whatever works for you, use it, enjoy it. I hope you get outside and enjoy the woods. Thanks for watching.